So after the rocky launch of Dishonored 2 on PC, I basically decided to sit my ass down and grind the game out on low settings to make my review. So without further ado, here it is. Story. Dishonored 2 is a first-person stealth action adventure game where you play as Empress Emily Kaldwin or Corvo Attano, the royal protector, and also her father. The game starts off with a coup d'etat in which Emily is overthrown as Empress by her mother's long-lost sister Delilah Kaldwin. The story basically centers around you playing as either Emily or Corvo and taking down each person that had a significant role in Delilah's coup. Once you get enough information about the coup and how it happened, you go after Delilah herself. Now I know the story may sound simple and linear, but there's a lot more to it than you think. Dishonored 2 is actually a game that implements choice, meaning that there are multiple endings depending on how you play the game and deal with all the bosses. All the characters in Dishonored 2, from the main cast to the supporting characters, have a distinct personality to them that help add to the realness of the story and the world. Granted, I didn't get too attached to any of them, but they had solid writing and good backstories. Speaking of backstories, that was a horrible segue, but whatever. Dishonored 2 is full of details. There's a lot of lore in this game, and the guys at Arcane have really tried to make a living, breathing world. You don't learn everything about Dishonored 2 just by watching the main cutscenes. You do it by listening to what random people in the street are saying. You do it by exploring abandoned apartments infested with blood flies. Hell, just take a couple minutes to go around Karnaca, which is the main city the game is based in, and you'll learn a lot more about the world of Dishonored 2. I really do appreciate the amount of effort they put into this aspect of the game, since as you could imagine, all these little details help Dishonored 2 get really immersive at times. My issue with the story of Dishonored 2 and in general the lore of it all is that at times it feels like an overwhelming amount of information is being thrown at you, and some of it doesn't make a lot of sense or connect. I beat the game twice as both characters, and on my first playthrough, every time a new character or some new story detail was introduced, I felt sort of lost. Now I think this could be due to a bunch of reasons, maybe me having a short attention span, who knows? Or maybe the very distracting performance of the PC port, but overall I think the storytelling should have been a bit less convoluted. There were also times where it felt like there were things that only people who beat the first Dishonored would really understand. Now I know that I do fall into that category, but I beat Dishonored 1 quite a long time ago, so I don't remember a lot of the details of that game. I do want to point out though that on my second playthrough of the game, everything made a lot more sense since I paid particular attention to the details and also because I already knew the main bits of the story. One final thing I want to point out about the story is that it felt a little short. On my first playthrough it took me around 8 hours to beat, and on my second playthrough it took me around 9.5. But you know, since there are two different playable characters and also multiple endings, I guess I can understand that. That being said, let's move on to the gameplay.
How did I get so old? Where are the men of my younger days? The dances we had.
What is going on here? Stop!
Mwah, mwah, mwah. The gameplay is where Dishonored 2 shines. Whether you want to be silent and stealthy, or go in guns blazing, or play with a mixture of both, you can do that because Dishonored 2 supports a number of playstyles. Depending on who you choose to play as at the start of the game, Emily or Corvo, you also get completely different sets of abilities which vary the gameplay even more. The abilities just make the game so much more fun. For example, Emily's domino ability allows her to link the fate of people together, so if you were to link two people together and then kill one of them, they would both die.
I'm a stone's throw from the Grand Palace where I can surround.
Do you see how badass that is? Even with Corvo, one of his abilities allows him to slow down time. Each of the abilities can be upgraded to become even more useful. For example, Domino can be upgraded to link even more people together, and Bend Time can be upgraded to completely stop time rather than just slow it down. And there are even more buffs to each of the other abilities that you can use. Beyond that, there are also general buffs that aren't exclusive to either Emily or Corvo that do things like increase health and regeneration and increase jump height, just to name a few. These minor buffs may not seem like much, but they do make a difference. For example, upgrading my jump height allowed me to reach further places without using Corvo's blink ability and wasting mana. It also allowed me to reach even further places with that ability in conjunction. Or even with the shadow kill buff, where if you kill an unaware enemy, he just vanishes, so patrolling enemies won't notice a dead body and start searching for you. The abilities you get are at the heart of Dishonored 2, and they are a big part of what makes the experience so much fun. But the overall ability system in Dishonored 2 is flawed. Basically, how you get these abilities is by spending a certain amount of runes on them. The way you get these runes is by using something called the Heart, which shows you the location of several runes scattered around the map for you to go and find. Now, going and searching for these runes may sound tedious, but for the most part it isn't. It's actually kind of fun, since a good amount of the runes are hidden in places that require you to explore the level and sneak around. The issue arises with the fact that certain abilities and ability upgrades just cost too much, and more often than not you're not going to have enough runes to get them. In fact, I'd go as far to say that there is a 99% chance that you will beat Dishonored 2 without using some of the abilities or ability upgrades that you wanted to get. I found myself in a bunch of situations where I badly wanted to upgrade an ability, and I had enough runes to do so, but I also wanted to unlock another ability, so I did have to make sacrifices. I felt like the guys at Arcane purposely didn't put enough runes just so that players wouldn't unlock a ton of abilities and just blaze through the game. Don't say I didn't search for them, because I did. Maybe I didn't go after each and every single ruin in every level, but I did find a good amount of them. Another thing I have to point out is that not all abilities complement all playstyles. What I mean when I say that is, you could get an ability that you really don't use all that much, meaning you just wasted your ruins. Besides the whole ruin upgrade system, there is also another upgrade system for little buffs that use things called bone charms. They're found the same way you find ruins. They're also like general buffs, so they do little things that can really help in tough situations. Now let's talk about the combat. Dishonored 2 allows you to use a bunch of weapons like grenades, sleep darts, and pistols, just to name a few. Each of your weapons can be upgraded at the black market to be more efficient and lethal in combat. The weapons, for me, proved to be really useful when I just felt like, fuck it, I'ma just kill or knock out anyone who gets in my way. And they proved to be a lot of fun to use. Most of the combat in Dishonored 2 though goes to sword fighting, where you can just spam the attack button or be more methodical and wait for your opponent to attack so you can parry. At first it may feel a little clunky and difficult, especially with the unique kinds of enemies like the clockwork soldiers, but once you learn the ins and outs of the combat, it actually gets a lot of fun. The killing animations are also really satisfying to watch. Blinking up a wall, waiting for an enemy to pass by, and then jumping down and driving your sword through their neck never gets old. Another great aspect of Dishonored 2's gameplay is the exploration. Dishonored 2 really rewards players that go off the beaten path and just search for shit. There are a lot of things you can find or hear that open up new ways to tackle a mission. For example, you could read a note that provides information that drastically changes how you could go about finishing a mission, or another more specific example I remember was when I found a random room that was abandoned. In the room there was a note written by a sailor talking about how he is leaving the city, but also how he has this secret room that has a bunch of goodies in it which he's leaving behind. I search the room and find this clock on the wall which I can conveniently push. I push that shit and voila, I found a shrine with 2 ruins on it. Point is, if you take your time with Dishonored 2 and really explore, you will be rewarded. There are a few times where it doesn't really work all that well, but for the most part, it's a lot of fun. The level design in Dishonored 2 is also pretty complex. There are several ways you can tackle each mission, and again, that goes back to exploring your options and taking your time. You will find something you didn't expect to find, and that will help you beat the mission. So overall, I'd say that Dishonored 2 is definitely one of the games I've had the most fun with in a while. Its story is good, although at times confusing. The gameplay is extremely fun, even though you may not unlock all the abilities, and even though I played at low settings since it ran so poorly, the game did look nice, to say the least. And I feel like I didn't mention this enough earlier in the review, but the level design is really impressive and allows you to tackle each mission in a plethora of ways. It does fall short in some areas, which is frustrating, but overall it's a really fun game. Definitely get it if you're looking for a really fun action adventure game on console. On PC, however, hold out for the game to have the shit patched out of it before you buy it. Anyways, those are my thoughts, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'm RejectedPlayboy, and peace out.
Outside, what's the upside to the downside? Upside down, look around for the ground out. Wanna fall from the balcony, blood from the drugs like alchemy. How can we slow down? I wonder if my grandmother proud of me. Ups and the downs, never doubted the outcome. We out till we out, and you bout it, then bounce with me, vice.